All right, this is gonna sound weird, but water is fascinating to me. I mean, on one hand, it's a source of life, right? Hydration and replenishment. We drink it, we give it to our pets, our plants, we use it on our yards. Plus, we use it to clean by mixing it with soap and just rinsing things off. I mean, our clothes, our cars, our hands, everything. But there's also a damaging side to water. See, it's easy to hear, like when you hear about floods or severe storms around the world, we see videos of flood waters roaring through streets, carrying cars, rising above the roof lines of houses. I mean, you get the idea. But water can be damaging over time as well. I mean, a small hole in a roof or a crack in a basement foundation can lead to huge, huge problems. This past summer, we bought a house, and the first major rain that we had, our basement started flooding with water. When we took down the wall that was covering the concrete behind them, we saw all kinds of little spots where the rainwater from the past had just gradually washed away tiny pieces of concrete and brick and formed these little pinholes that allowed the water to flood into our basement like someone had turned on like a tiny sink faucet and it was just pouring into the basement. It was a huge, huge problem, a huge, huge headache for us. And look, we all face adversity in life, right? That adversity can come in all shapes and sizes. We experience the loss of someone or something close to us that we love dearly, and grief and anger can flood us like those floodwaters flood the streets in a massive storm. But other times, there are smaller things that just chip away at us. Maybe a thing a person in our lives does to frustrate or anger us, something that causes us sadness, some anxiety or worry. They don't come like a big wave flooding the streets, but they just gradually, over time, chip away at us. A good way to recognize these things is if we see them as obstacles to a better life instead of components to our best life. Things that cause us to think, if it wasn't for that thing, whatever it is, my life would be so much better. In the book of Exodus, that obstacle to a better life was massive. The Israelites had been slaves for a long time, generations, in fact, in Egypt. But then God sends Moses, and Moses leads God's people out of captivity. Well, sort of. In Exodus 14, you can read about how the Israelites left Egypt, and then afterwards, Pharaoh and these other rulers in Egypt changed their minds. So instead of letting the Israelites go free after they had promised to, they pursue them with their armies intent on recapturing them and bringing them back to be slaves again in Egypt. And as they're on the run, the Israelites run into a huge problem, the Red Sea. And then something incredible happens. Exodus 14 explains it this way. It says, as Pharaoh approached, the Israelites looked up, and there were the Egyptians marching after them. And they were terrified, so they cried out to the Lord. And the Lord said to Moses, why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff, stretch out your hand over the sea, and divide the water so that the Israelites can go through the sea on dry ground. That is absolutely incredible to think about. See, it's hard for us to remember how powerful God really is sometimes. In this instance, God proves his power by parting the waters of the Red Sea to the point that the ground beneath the sea is completely dried out. The Red Sea, just so you know, at its widest point is 190 miles across. That's a 2-hour drive in a car. It's about 170,000 square miles of water, which is absolutely massive. So for God to basically draw a line down the middle of the Red Sea so that it was wide enough for what some biblical scholars believe to be about 2 million people to cross it was a miracle of absolutely epic proportions. Now let's bring this all back to our lives. Again, we all face adversity, all shapes and sizes. But ask yourself something right now. If God can part the seas and even the oceans, is there anything that you are facing right now today that he cannot take care of? I think the obvious answer, if we really are honest, is no. When God, the ocean parter, is on our side, there is no obstacle in front of us, nothing that we can face that will get the best of us. He does massive things on a massive scale for the people that he loves. So think about your life today and hand your obstacles to him and watch what massive things he does on your behalf.